IT software development used to be very, like you said, deterministic. And now it feels like it's changing rapidly. The kind
Mhm.
of work that we do, it becomes more probabilistic. It needs more discussion, integration. What does that do for the kind of people that we need? What kind of talent do we need to be able to, well, build these systems, but also to have all those discussions? It feels very different from a standard Scrum team.
It is, and actually, you can see that happening in recent times in two ways. So I'll sort of layer this answer. The first bit is a lot of the principles of good software engineering are needed now more than ever before. That hasn't changed. Um, the second aspect is you are seeing specialized roles where previously, like if you think maybe 6 7 years back, you had like a machine learning engineer would be somebody who trained a model and then built a system around it for whatever purpose. But training the model was something that was integral to the role. And now, if you think about the more modern AI engineer, it's somebody who assumes that a model is available to them either through an API call or something their team has built that's accessible to them in some way. And then they are focused on building the system around it or the application around it and then monitoring it and deploying it. So that kind of skill set has become increasingly more and more valuable because a lot of the applications that we work with today are based around either multimodal large models or large language models. And so what happens is you don't need to focus as much on the modeling aspect. You just assume that a model is there for you, but then you really have to focus about how do you build the system around the model and how do you monitor it, observe it, how do you scale it, and all of those aspects. So that is a skill set that is becoming increasingly relevant. The other interesting trend is as with the rise of these coding assistants that can write a lot of code for you. Again, you have to be really, really vigilant about how you steer these systems to writing code. That itself is a skill that you need to learn. Roles have started becoming like blurrier. So a product manager can code, can design. A designer can do scrums and do coding. An engineer can now think about writing PRDs and maybe even taking a stab at designing. And similarly, like the more roles you introduce, you can find that AI is able to sort of supplement the weak spots and amplify where you are already strong. So this notion of um, these siloed roles is sort of going away, and so really the skills that you have to start developing is judgment and taste. So being able to say what is good and what is great, and having a very opinionated um, taste of what you think should be, should be the product or application. And then on top of that, just being able to, as we talked at the very start, just using these tools and really getting good with them, being able to know how do you orchestrate things, how do you steer things, and knowing which model to use for which particular use case, how to manage the context window. All of these are becoming way more important than sort of those previously precious skills. So that's what I feel value is now.
Because even as a software engineer, I mean, we used to come from a world where we just pick up a ticket. Ticket says, as a marketeer, I want to go into the CRM and I want to check the latest status on, I don't know, opportunity A. That's very different building something like that from trying to figure out what the rules and the guardrails should be around a smart AI model built by somebody else. Gemini, I don't know, something else. Very different job. Okay.
Extremely.
Gonna be interesting. And it's all moving so fast. How are you personally just keeping up? Do you read research papers? How do you keep up with all the hype and all the announcements and everything that's going on?
A couple of ways. The first thing is just being okay with the fact that you're not going to know everything that's coming out or stay on top of everything. Anyone who's doing it, please let me know how I'd love to learn. But the second bit is to have a set of trusted sources that you have either curated or have come to follow. And for me, as part of writing my weekly newsletter, that's sort of a forcing function of being able to just focus on something what's going on and sort of either write about it in depth or just like at least curate notes and details that I can come back to later. And more specifically, as part of my job, just focusing on what's going on in that subset. I feel like just even being able to do that at a consistent cadence and spending maybe 30 minutes a day looking through what's happening. And of course, now what I've done is I've also like built an agent. Sorry, I had to throw the buzzword in here. I've built an agent to help me, based on my taste and preferences, curate things for me, so that way I can filter through the noise and identify things a lot faster than before. So all of these are replicable systems to each their own. But the point is, don't go for more. Go deeper in less, and then just keep tabs on what's happening around. So they talk about the T model, right? You're very deep in one area, but with the AI space now, it's no longer the T model. It's probably the M model. You need to be deeper in one or two areas at least. But the point is, you don't know everything at a very deep level, but you're able to keep up at a, like you just are able to follow some newsletters or podcasts or something that gives you a glimpse into what else is going on. But then in your areas, you're spending a lot of time understanding what's happening and just thinking about it, writing about it. That's the best way. And then, of course, building things. Just use the tools, because it's mind blowing what is possible today compared to what is possible 3 years ago. And just being able to appreciate and use these tools to build things, I think that itself is a great thing to do.
That makes sense. I'm gonna ask you, so what are your short-term, at least, predictions then? Because, I mean, if we look back, like you said, 3 years, it's been incredible what's happened in the last 3.5 years and where we got to from GPT 3.5 to 5.4, actually, at the moment. Where do we go from here? What do you see?
A couple of areas that I would really like to come true. The first one is smaller models that are personalized. So the context here is these models, the large language models, are consuming a ton of energy. They need a lot of data to be trained. It When you think about the volume of people using these models on a daily basis, it isn't particularly good for the planet. So for me, just being able to think of smaller models that are just as capable, maybe not as general purpose as these larger models, but very specific and calibrated for your use cases. And maybe models that can run on the phone, that from a data privacy perspective, that would be fantastic, and from a climate perspective, even better. And the second area where I am very curious to see what happens is medicine. Interestingly, ever since AlphaFold came out, and that's an area where I feel like there's so much potential for us to do something worthwhile for humanity. And if we are able to identify cures for very incurable diseases, or very like diseases that completely debilitate the human body, I think that would be fantastic. But then finally, I mean, everybody is going to be talking about the system agents and where they go from here. So I'm yet to see a real world agent use case that's you know truly robust and um, outside of coding agents, right? I mean, just this is just a personal, very highly biased opinion, but I think like in the next couple of years, we might see some very interesting shifts in how agents are able to disrupt the industry. So those are my top three.